the first U.S. presidential rematch in nearly 70 years. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump both clinching their party's nomination on Tuesday. Both are cruising to primary victories in Georgia, Mississippi, and Washington, with Trump also winning in the Republican caucuses in Hawaii. Now, for those watching from Israel, there is one big question: who is going to be better for Israelis? Well, joining us now is Bryan Leib, a senior fellow at the Center for Fundamental Rights, and Joel Rubin, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. So you heard that question: who is better for Israel? Joel, would you like to begin?
Sure, Natasha. I don't think there's any question that Joe Biden is better for Israel. What Donald Trump did was essentially enact policies, for example, on Iran, that has enabled Iran to get closer to a nuclear weapon than they ever have been before. And that means he got rid of a nuclear deal that was keeping Iran in place. And also the big picture is that Donald Trump loves to ally himself with Christian nationalists and white supremacists. While Joe Biden talks about how he met Golda Meir in his first trip to Israel, and that still is something he carries with him, Donald Trump has dinner with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West and other anti-Semites at Mar-a-Lago, and we just can't trust him. So I think on both those counts, it's pretty clear that Joe Biden is the better choice.
I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on that, Bryan.
It's tough to keep a straight face hearing Joel talk about how Joe Biden is so good for Israel. When you look at every single policy over the last, 100 years when it comes to U.S. and Israel relations, Donald Trump comes out as the winner on every single one of them. You know, Joe Biden was in the White House when Obama had the opportunity to move the embassy to Jerusalem. They didn't do it. And a good example, just to look at the stark differences between the two here, it was President Trump that recognized Israel's sovereignty in the Golan Heights, and it was Joe Biden who put an executive order on the table sanctioning, quote, settlers in Judea and Samaria. So it's pretty clear to see who's better for Israel.
Well, I have to say that when it comes to the current war, Israelis are pretty happy they have the Iron Dome system. That was a system developed by President Obama and Vice President Biden. And on the reverse side, the Republicans, supported by Donald Trump, recently voted against military aid to Israel in this Gaza war. And Joe Biden has shown Israelis that he cares about their security. And Donald Trump, I think it's all for sale. And I think that's what Israelis have to worry about is he going to sell them out next, just like he did the United States, and suddenly supporting TikTok because China may want it. So there's a lot of concern there.
Joel, there is no way in hell that President Trump would be authorizing the building of a port in Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas. That is what President Biden is doing right now.
So
you can throw as many stats as you want about the JCPOA and all these different things. Listen, Iran has never been stronger than they are right now. $90 billion in oil sales because of President Biden, because he's not enforcing the Trump-era sanctions. So what are you talking about when you say that Biden is great for Israel?
Data matters, Brian. I agree with you.
Data does matter. $90 billion. They are richer, the Iranians. $90 billion.
Joel.
Netanyahu is welcoming American assistance to help ensure that Gaza doesn't go into a famine. The Israeli government supports that action. And Iran, the whole deal with Iran and the nuclear deal was to prevent them from getting a weapon. And what Donald Trump did was he enabled them to get closer. And we have not been able to turn that farcical decision back. Iran is a strong country. I agree with you. Iran needs to be deterred. I agree with you. So why would you allow them to get closer to the bomb? But that's what Donald Trump did.
All right, I'd like to ask a question about Biden and Netanyahu more specifically. We've really kind of been seeing them airing out their dirty laundry, I guess you could say their disagreements in the public as of late. I mean, what does this mean for the future of Israel's relationship with the Democratic Party? Joel?
From my perspective, I think that, frankly, the relationship between Israel and the United States is as strong as it's ever been. I think we see a lot of anger and unrest, certainly coming from the progressive base. There's a lot of concern about Gaza. I have my own concerns with their arguments. But overwhelmingly, American Jews vote Democratic 75 to 80% of the time. They'll do it again because they believe that Joe Biden supports American democracy. He believes in the rule of law. He doesn't want to sell out our secrets to our foreign enemies. Donald Trump stands for insurrection and overturning the Constitution. And American Jews, we benefit when we're in a safe, stable democracy that follows the rule of law.
Brian?
Hey, Joel, the recent poll that came out of New York when it came to Jewish voters, did you see that poll in terms of how many now are supporting President Trump?
Who commissioned it? Who commissioned it?
Man, you are such a spin doctor. It's a simple question. Did you see the poll or not?
It's a question. I want to know who did the poll.
Okay, so you're talking about a 75
How can I say if I saw it if you're not telling me which one it is?
The Siena did the poll. 54% of Jews in New York are going to be voting for Donald Trump. So you can talk about the 75, 80% all you want.
Are a subset.
All right, let's talk about if Trump were to win. Let's talk about if Trump were to win. I mean, what could we actually expect out of his Middle East policy at this point? Brian?
Out of President Trump?
Out of President Trump, if he were to win.
You could see an administration that enforces sanctions that are on the books right now that would prohibit the Iranians from selling billions of dollars of their oil to China and Venezuela and many other countries. I mean, that's the first thing you could see. Second thing, you're going to see no daylight between the United States and Israel. I'm sorry, there's a lot of daylight right now between the Biden administration and the Netanyahu administration. It wasn't Netanyahu that was just in Washington, D.C. for meetings. No. It was Benny Gantz. So there's a lot of daylight between these two countries, between these two administrations right now, and it's been amplified to a whole nother level after October 7th. And, you can talk to Jews in America, you can talk to Jews in Israel. Everyone knows that Donald Trump is better for Israel in policy, in actions, in words. It comes down to peace through strength, not weakness. And that's all Joe Biden has been doing for the last 3.5 years.
I just would like to say something. Well, okay, go ahead and respond. I just want to say something about the recent polls. Yeah.
I think that Joe Biden is scoring quite high in Israel, and the support that he's provided for Israel, the appropriate support, is greatly appreciated in the state of Israel. And I don't think that that's anything that American Jews should be worried about. The Israelis like Joe Biden as president.
Right. The latest polls that we saw come out from Channel 12 News here in Israel was at this point, 44% of Israelis would rather see former U.S. President Donald Trump return to the White House, compared to 30% who would prefer U.S. President Joe Biden. But we have seen a lot of support from Israel in terms of Joe Biden and his leadership during this time throughout the course of the war. So I guess the question that I would have right now is more specifically about the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and how that would have a major impact, or whether or not it would have a major impact on policy towards Israel. The question is going to go, of course, to you, Joel. Quick answer, because we have to go out for a commercial break shortly.
Absolutely. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party has an impact on the president, just like the MAGA right-wing anti-Semitic part of the Republican Party has an impact on Donald Trump. And that's not going to disappear. But we just saw today Ilhan Omar, a very progressive member, saying she would vote for Joe Biden. They're going to come together, and that's going to give Joe Biden a very strong level of support from the Democratic Party. But remember, make no mistake, he is the president. He's getting a lot of opposition from the base as well, because he has stood by Israel since October 7th, continually providing military support, moral support, supported the United Nations, you name it. And that's the Joe Biden that they'll get in the second term as well.
Any last words, Brian?
I'm going to reiterate the point that I just made. There are two presidents here. There's one president that recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights in Judea and Samaria. There's one president that signed an executive order sanctioning Israelis in Judea and Samaria in the middle of the war. One of them was Donald Trump. One of them was Joe Biden.
My daughter interrupted.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you both for joining us on